Opponents ready? The time starts now. Honorable judges and worthy opponents, ever since the Human Genome Project has been introduced, it brought both perils and promise. The pro side today will strongly support the motion, and we will begin by offering our definitions. First, public health service, according to the World Health Organization, is the art and science of preventing disease, prolonging life, and promoting health through the organized efforts of society and partially funded by the government. Expanded access means opening up and widening the access to these technologies. And genetic technology consists of both the gene GPS to locate a gene, and then DNA is inserted, deleted, modified, or replaced in a genome, both inside and outside of a living organism. Framework. The pro side today adopts a framework that, because of gene editing's promise as a tool that can strengthen public health services should expand gene editing. Our two conditions are, first, gene editing is a viable cure for many currently incurable diseases. And second, international regulations and their effectiveness not only ensures the safety of these technologies, but also spreads public awareness toward them. Condition 1. Gene editing is a viable cure for many incredibly dangerous diseases, which are currently very difficult to cure. The purpose of gene editing, aided by CRISPR technology, is definitely not to limit all human illnesses, but rather to correct for mutations that doctors currently can identify and observe, yet may lack the tools to fix. Now, one of the examples of these diseases are monogenic diseases. Monogenic diseases are caused by mutation in a single isolated cell, in a single isolated gene, and currently scientists have been gaining more and more knowledge regarding this issue. With cystic fibrosis, for example, mutation of a single gene called CFTR produces serious respiratory issues within an individual. Individuals with this disease would very rarely live longer than 40 years, and this is only the optimistic situation in developed worlds. Think of so many things that a person could experience or achieve if only they could live beyond those 40 years. Do we really want to deprive people of the rest of their lives when the cure for these people could be right in our hands? Now, genetic editing technologies through CRISPR, however, could be an effective cure for diseases like cystic fibrosis and many more, where previous medicines have failed. Michelle Marangi from the Italian Medicines Agency reported in 2018, very recently, that innovative genetic therapies have begun for cystic fibrosis, and it's predictable that this will lead to rapid improvements. And cystic fibrosis is only one of the numerous diseases that could be alleviated with this technology. Now let's consider this. 3 decades ago, when this technology was first introduced, it had a failure rate of over 67%. And now, 3 decades later, it has gone down to less than 18%. Why are we stopping this at such an optimistic prospect? And onto our second contention, regulations, which absolutely maximizes and ensures the safety of these technologies. We understand that one of the most important concerns on the con side is that technologies could be misused and thus cause immense danger for the humans. However, this is very unlikely because, so take European Union for example. They have established a legal and regulatory framework for safeguarding the development of genetically modified organisms to protect humans, animals, and the environment. So what this means is that developing bioweapons is actually much more complicated than it sounds. And each government panel would establish a set of very specific rules, and every single one of these companies who wish to obtain even one branch of these genetic editing technologies will go through the panel, which have established ethical guidelines and obtain approval before they make a single move. And this has worked perfectly in Europe and Northern America, with no cases of accidents that could cause us to be actually concerned by the expanded use of these technology. And therefore, based on these such strict regulations imposed in most countries, and if not all countries who wish to expand access, hypotheses such as designer babies or other misuses, or hypotheses of ableism or eugenics don't stand because they're strictly under supervision with these rules established and will not occur in our world. Thank you.
Judges ready? Opponents ready? Partner ready? My time starts now. As CON, we firmly negate the resolution. Public health services should expand access to gene editing technologies. Public health services means as all public, private, voluntary entities that contribute to the delivery of essential public health services within jurisdiction, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Expand means to increase something in size, number, or importance. Access means freedom or ability to obtain or make use of something. We believe that if there's sufficient proof to show that gene editing technology can cause much more damage to human beings rather than benefit to the whole generation, convince. Contention 1. High risk and dangers of remedies. Plenty of evidence show that gene editing technology can't cure diseases effectively and also lead to more disease, even cancer. The disease it intended to cure. According to the New Scientist, 2018, there's a risk of causing cancer sometimes in a patient's lifetime. The finding comes just a month after another team reported that there was a cancer risk from gene editing, and embryonic stem cells. Gene editing also has a high probability to cause mutations, leading problems to the next generation. A scientist who studies gene editing at Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston has discovered the frequency of mutations can reach the magnitude of 60%. Even the head scientists assure that it's dangerous. According to Hippocrates, the oath of medicine, the doctors have the responsibility to cure the patients with methods that are 100% safe, or they are disobeying their oath. Contention 2. Discrimination and rights. Gene editing technology exacerbates the discrimination problem, letting people with disabilities suffer from even more serious discrimination and ableism problems. According to Berkeley Science View, with an expanded ability to correct genetic defects, it's possible that those who don't have access to therapeutic genome editing technology or choose not to use it could be labeled as genetically inferior and granted lower status than those who were edited. This evokes troubling memories of the history of eugenics in the United States, in which federal and state governments promoted sterilization of people deemed genetically unfit. The former director of National Council on Disability warned, too often the media and society frame people with disabilities as takers, beggars, and unworthy cost drivers for the rest of the public. Also, all the parents can have designer babies, so their kids were even born with characteristics that they don't even like. Contention 3. Cause harm to the society. Subpoint A. Bioweapons. Expanding gene editing technology to the public health services means that people can get access to it more easily, including the criminals and any companies, according to the James Glover, U.S. Director of National Intelligence, added gene editing to a list of threats posed by weapons of mass destruction and proliferation. Scientists have previously speculated about whether CRISPR could be used to make killer mosquitoes, plagues that wipe out staple crops, and even a virus that sniffs at people's DNA. Subpoint B. Doesn't solve the real problem and will do harm to the conscious economy system. Even though gene editing technology can help change people's DNA, people's future prospects can't get better after that. Even after having a normal body, the key to change the life of the people in the poverty-stricken areas are shelters, education, and opportunities. But gene editing technology won't solve or bring any of the above. While even cutting the government's budget and people's money account, it will do harm to society's economy and system as well, bring huge loss through biotech bubble. According to a report from PwC in the number of IPOs, biotech is exploding. That easily crushes the 2013 record of 55 healthcare IPOs, of which 47 were biotech, and is far more than the height of the early 2000s genomics bubble, in which many startups went public, soared in value, and crushed. In a nutshell, gene editing technology will cause tremendous damage and loss to the society. Thus, judges, please vote for the con. Thanks.
Classifiers. You guys ready?
So, the time starts now.
First question. So you have mentioned about doctors' oath. So I would like to ask you, watching someone die when you have the cure to that disease, don't you think that obeys oath more and also obeys the responsibility of governments?
However, in our contention 1, we said that Hippocrates, the oath of medicine, that people have the responsibility to cure patients with methods that are 100% safe and they are disobeying the oath. So we are saying that if the method is not 100% safe, we are not the doctors aren't responsible for the patients, and it's disobeying the oath. And since you don't have any exact example or evidence to prove that's wrong, and it's the same.
Okay, are you aware that currently in March 2018 there has already been a very large-scale trial conducted in both China and the U.S. with very large medical institutions that have shown that even the most complicated trials and methods of genetic editing the risks of these have gone down to as low as 18%, which means that less than 1 out of 5.
Yeah, so there remains, why going to tell us that there remains risk. So that is for our point. The methods are still not 100% safe, and it is disobeying their oath. You are for our point.
Wait, so, okay, let's imagine this. There's a cancer patient who is on the verge of dying. So do you think he will be willing to take any treatment, even if, just because there is a slight percent of risk?
But now we're talking about the doctor's responsibility. We're saying that we have to expand access to the public health services. So the doctors are responsible for that. For the doctor, their responsibility is to cure patients with methods that are 100% safe. Even you have a little bit risk can be accepted because it's disobeying their oath. And now it's our time to ask the question. So you're saying that your regulation can ban the ethical problem. However, it's a thought in the people's mind. How can you ban it by regulation?
Okay, so do you realize that the regulation here we're talking about is not only on paper, it's not laid out only on paper. Regulations here we're talking about is very tangible. So how technology works is that technology is not something that you obtain and then you can do everything with it. There are different branches of technology. And to create something, you need both technology, equipment, and the knowledge and professionality. And therefore, to obtain even the least bit, the equipment, you will have to go through these panels. And the government will not approve to give you the technology if they can foresee dangers.
Yeah. So you're still restating your points, but you haven't proved that you can control people's mind about discrimination. You haven't proved that. You're just saying your regulation again. But what we have to ask is whether regulation can control people's thoughts. You didn't approve that. So please give me your explanation.
Sorry, which point exactly is your question on?
How can regulation control people's thoughts?
We're not trying to control people's thoughts.
So
We're controlling the outcome, the actions.
So the discrimination.
My partner will then, in her speech, explain the part about discrimination.
Rebuttal.
Judges ready? Opponent ready?
Yeah.
Time starts now. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. In my speech, I will offer the rebuttals to consequence. First, they have mentioned that gene editing technology has high risk. Gene editing technology can't cure diseases. However, I would like to respond to the conside that gene editing technology they have responded by saying that gene editing technology can potentially lead to the cancer. However, we are implementing and using this technology on people who are already dying. So what makes a difference between that gene editing technology can go wrong? They are already dying. Gene editing technology is their last resort. So why can't we grant this technology to them? And also, gene editing technology operates outside of the body, which means that we take these cells outside of the body, we moderate them, and then we inject those who are 100% safe back to a human. So the case that you have mentioned doesn't stand at all. And in 2017, doctors in USA and Korea have fixed the MYBPC3 gene, which causes heart failures. And more than 30 patients in the world have been treated for SCID diseases by gene editing technology, and 19% of them are cured by gene editing technology. This means that gene editing technology can save people is a reality by now. It is happening in this world. And before any technology is implemented in this world, safety must be checked by the government. The government would ensure that these technologies would be implemented safely. And also, shouldn't the government prioritize the safety of its citizens first? Second, the opponent has mentioned that introducing gene editing technologies would lead to genetic discrimination. However, doesn't gene editing technology eliminate discrimination among people? If those disabled are discriminated against in our society, gene editing technology can help them to live a healthy and able life. Isn't gene editing technology contributing to the society more? And also, the concept has mentioned that some people don't want to be cured by gene editing technology. Well, let me ask you then, why aren't we listening to the voices of those who want to be cured? Why aren't we listening to those people who are desperate to find a cure to prolong their life? Not mentioning the people with muscular dystrophy. They are, by the year of 11, they are on wheelchairs, and they can only live up to 40 years. Then why aren't we using this gene editing technology to save their life, to prolong their life? Not mentioning that 35 million of people suffer from HIV worldwide. And also, 3, bioweapons. The concept has mentioned that introducing gene editing technologies would lead to the creation of bioweapons. However, the concept failed confused about editing a virus's gene and editing a human gene. A virus, known to us, don't have DNA. Viruses have RNA. Therefore, that implies that we have different technologies, different means, different methods for changing a virus gene. Thus, the creation of a supervirus is very less likely. And last, the content is mentioned about the cost of a new technology. However, as new technologies replaces the old technology, the resources that we spent on old technologies can be reallocated and used on gene editing technologies. So that would not create a burden on the government. And also, imagine this. Decades ago, the cost of computers, cars, were as high as we can imagine today. But look at us now. Everyone has computers and phones today. So gradually, the cost of gene editing technology can be cut down by the government. Last but not least, we believe that gene editing technology provides unique benefits to the society that other methods cannot provide. Gene editing technologies can potentially save millions and millions of people's lives. Therefore, on the point that we believe that the pro-side wins. Thank you.
Crossfire.
Rebuttal.
May I sit? Because I cannot hold the timer and hold my computer and hold the... Okay, I got it.
Judges ready? Opponents ready? Opponent ready? Yes. My time starts now. According to our opponent's contention one, they talk about gene editing technologies fixing the various diseases. However, here are our responses to that. Gene editing may be self-defeating in its quest to eliminate diseases. First, diseases are complex. Ed Young, a scientist writer for The Atlantic, notes that common diseases are typically influenced by legion of genes. Thus, CRISPR cannot cure diseases by editing or inserting a single gene. He also indicates that proponents of gene editing ignore environmental influence on disease risk from non-genetic risk factors including air pollution and diet. And second, CRISPR will produce off-target effects. According to reporters Ellen Yuhan and Clemma Kella, gene editing could result in an accident that could make humans more susceptible to diseases. This is because genes are connected in complex ways, where immunity to one disease based on a single edit could increase our susceptibility to other bacteria and viruses. Ed Young continues with the example from his dialogue with genetics. Deleting the CCR5 gene would make people resistant to HIV, but also make them 30 times more likely to die of West Nile viruses. Our opponents cannot rule out any side effects. Hospital boards may have approved gene editing without a comprehensive understanding of its risks. In China, one member of Hangzhou Cancer Hospital approved CRISPR trials because she trusted reporters that the side effects were mild, although she did not fully understand the science laid out of her, according to the science reporter Kathleen Foley. Secondly, CRISPR will face multiple practical barriers. First, the human immune system may fight back, according to Dr. Jianhua Luo, a professor of pathology at the University of Pittsburgh, because CRISPR is a bacterial protein. Our immune system may attack it because we may have been exposed to the CRISPR mechanism during common bacterial infections. And also, we can see that there is dying people. There is people who are getting diseases and dying. But however, if we expand this access, there will be chaos in the society. And that balancing the cost and benefits of gene editing, we should not expand the access because it will cause much more dangerous outcomes. Also, in their contention too, they talk about regulations of gene editing technology. However, this is also what they brought up, and that this has not been put into use. You don't really know what these regulations are going to do. So firstly, about the terrorism, bioterrorism,
according to their regulations. Do you think someone who wants to do bioterrorism will listen to those regulations? They have their ways, like biohackers. They can get access to this and do this whatever they want. And also, about the discrimination, we didn't say that gene editing technology caused ableism discrimination. We are saying that this exaggerates this phenomena because people are thinking that disabled people, they have the choice to choose not to be like this, but they choose not to. So that is their fault, and that is exaggerating this idea to the social public. And regulations is certainly not going to help this problem. So please vote for Con.
Judges ready? Opponent ready? Yeah. Time starts now. Is the concept aware of the fact that West Nile virus is not a fatal disease, whereas HIV causes people to have less life expectancy, and 35 million of people are suffering from this disease right now?
What's your problem?
In your speech, you have mentioned that changing the genes that causes HIV would make people more vulnerable towards West Nile virus. However, West Nile virus is not a fatal disease and can be cured in months. However, HIV has a more profound damage on the society and welfare of people.
However, we also have solutions for cancer and HIV right now. The Medium is the newest member of Human Vaccines Project, which will help to accelerate the research and development of vaccines and immunotherapies for infectious diseases and cancers.
But can these technologies provide the same effectiveness of gene editing technologies can provide?
Yes.
Are there any success cases? Is it a mere dream in the future, or that it is proven right now?
Scientists, and now it's our time to ask you a question. As you mentioned in your rebuttal, you were saying that people now are dying from that diseases, so it doesn't matter. So what do you mean? You mean people have terminal diseases, they are dying, so let them get involved to be in that experiment of whether this technology.
I am not saying that we are conducting experiments on them. However, gene editing technology is their last hope. Their last hope to have access to a healthier life and
But how do you
potentially
define dying? Like, you only give the therapy to people who die in 3 weeks or 10 years. What do you define dying?
For example, if you have cancer, if you only have three weeks of life expectancy, of course you're going to seek the most extreme methods. However, if you have more than 10 years to live, you're going to find more safe ways other than gene editing technologies. So what we're saying now, we are giving people a choice of whether they want to use gene editing technology. And it is my turn to ask a question. Shouldn't people have their freedom to choose what they want to do with their body?
Yes, but how can you risk their lives by you can give this access to people while you don't have any, you are not like given this risky therapy to them. It's not giving them freedom to choose.
So you're saying that,
as I have said in my rebuttal case, most people, they know they can have, they have the freedom to choose.
So a
but
doctor
they don't
should
really
watch-
know the risk they are facing.
So a doctor should watch his or her patient die, and she or he has the right cure to cure him, but she can't? Is it morally acceptable?
Is it moral for you to use this technology?
Thirty seconds preparation time, please.
30 seconds up.
That's 30 seconds. Okay.
Is ready?
It's frozen.
Summary.
Everyone ready? Okay, time starts now. As the third speaker on the process, I'll clear up all of the clash points that happen in this debate and explain why we want on every single one of them. Now, before I begin, I would like to point out that the biggest flaw that exists in our opponent's team is that all of the risks, since we are weighing the benefits with the risks, all of the risks that they have pointed out are potential in the future and indefinite, while all of the benefits that we have pointed out are substantial and have already been established already. Now, onto each clash point. First, side effects and side effects. So they have made a comparison between HIV and West Nile virus. That is an illustration of what I'm talking about of indefinite risks. So if a person has HIV, do we really want them to live in the fear of being infected because of the lack of their immune system and not risk them being maybe slightly more prone to a disease that they might never come in contact to? And second, uniqueness. It has been proven that gene editing technology can cure many diseases that are currently incurable. For example, cancer. If you have already developed into the last phase of cancer, there is no other way that you can cure it. It's 100% going to deteriorate, while gene editing technologies, maybe there are slight risks contained in it, but it's definitely a better choice to cure the person than letting them die and not doing anything to them. And third, cost. So our opponent have mentioned about how much cost goes into this technology. However, if this once this technology matures, it can replace many other old technologies, and we can move all of the budget, which were originally spent into the separate old technologies, into this one coherent new technology, which saves much more money in the long run. And fourth, regulation. Our opponent has stated that regulations are not in place. However, that's simply not true because the UN, the EU Pact, and Biological Weapon Treaty are already signed by over 50 countries around the world, out of over 60 countries who have access to these technologies. And this means that vast majority.
Okay. Conti.
15 seconds. Proposition talk, please.
That's 15 seconds.
So, judges ready? Opponents ready? Partner ready? My time starts now. Judges, above all, we can clearly see that our opponents just imagine an ideal future. Safe technology, no concerns of discrimination, and they even don't think about how to deal with bioweapons. It's just an imagination. Just judge. It's us who do care about their lives, their death, and the future society, who want to obey the oath, want to provide them a better life, and want to prevent the problem. Firstly, judges, our opponents are just saying that while they are dying, what's the difference between the people who are going to die with the people using this technology and die after that? Our opponents can't deny that they mentioned that in their rebuttal speech. So they're saying that they're dying, so let's do experiments on them. There's no extra cost. They are trampled on their human rights. They don't even consider them as human, but just something used in medical experiments. Since they agree that there exists risk, as they mentioned in their summary speech,